continue. So to some organization, to do digital transformation simply means plugging in an ERP or an enterprise resource planning solution so that it can help them to manage the process of the organization. To another organization, it simply means installing an accounting software, which helps them to run their financial records quite well and with transparency. And to some, especially SACCOs, it simply means putting some kind of a basic core banking system, which works for them at least. And it means differently to different people. But this webinar will just touch on some main points, which are basic, to give you a clear understanding, which is not quite complicated, to know exactly what it means. And whether you're in microfinance or you're in a SACCO, this will be quite important for you because you can actually use it. Even if you're in another kind of a business, because I saw someone send a text and they say that they are not necessarily in microfinance, but they are quite interested with this topic. So that will also be very important for you. So digital transformation simply means use of technology to improve business process, to make things flow quite easily. And it's basically deployment of technology, which should help your business to be automated so that you can become more productive and you can become more efficient. And looking at how important this could be, there has been a lot of disruptions in the SACCO industry, or rather in the SACCO sector, in microfinance sector, basically. And these disruptions have come because there has been a lot of innovation. And this innovation has been rapidly adopted by consumers. And therefore, it's inevitable for SACCOs to actually think about how they can transform so that they can fit into this new change that has happened. So we have mezzanine lenders, microfinance institutions, who as well need to compete with the other players in the industry so that they can be more friendly to the customers through their offering and all that. And therefore, this kind of dynamism which is required can only be driven by the digital transformation strategy, which we want to discuss and talk about. So there is a term that normally is used interchangeably when people are talking about digital transformation. And people ask, what's the difference between digital transformation and business transformation? But it's important to actually have a clear difference about the two terms so that at least you can know where to start from. Because some people start from the digital part and they forget that the digital part is a component of the business part. So ideally, digital transformation is a component of the overarching business transformation strategy. So it always starts from a point of analyzing your business. It starts from a point of analyzing your capacity, analyzing where you want to go. And therefore, you put more focus on your systems, you put more focus on the people factor, people element, because they're important. Look at your process flows. And then finally, you look at now the technology, which can enable that to happen. So ideally, you are doing all that so that you can achieve more efficiency, you can be more productive as an organization. And at the end of the day, you can have improved bottom line for that matter. So it's about understanding your business first. Then technology should come to inspire whatever you have planned in your business. It's quite unfortunate, and that's actually the reason behind failure of so many businesses, because they start with actually the technology side. They're inspired by the technology first, and then they think of how now they can start a business. Now look at it like this. So you have heard there's a technology which can be used, in the medical industry, and without a medical background, you want to go and use technology to do that. You'll never succeed. The same case, you want to start credit or even to do microfinance, but you don't want to have some basic understanding of how credit works. You're not interested in the whole process of how credit happens, from where the customer registers to to the point of verification. How do you identify your customers and verify their identity? How do you make these people to actually borrow a loan? What are the processes of making loan application? What are the approval processes? What should you do in order to appraise a loan so that you don't incur a loss? Because the main goal of you doing credit business basically is to make some income through the interest that you charge. But remember, there's a risk that someone may not pay the loan altogether. And for that reason, it's important for you to consider the business element first, the processes, the skill set, which doesn't have to be so wide, but at least having a basic understanding, then plugging in technology so that now there can be a smooth flow of business. So it's vital for a business to understand itself, to understand the market, and you understand the customers, so that when you're planning to execute a digital lending strategy, it can actually succeed. So business models are what connects a technology to the real market. The potential of a technology cannot be felt if the business model has not per se been considered. Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you, Charles, for that. So you've clarified the importance of business transformation as well as technological transformation. However, I'm curious to know, why should a business transform? Because if I have systems in place which are already working for my business, why should I now just jump into this new wave and transform my business digitally?
Thank you, Bianca, for that question. And I can compare that question to the point in which someone becomes hungry, because all businesses are hungry, so that they can achieve something at the end of the day. You can make some profit, you can make, income. And here you are, you're hungry. What do? You have to eat. It's now becoming a necessity because of the market requirement and the advancement in terms of the customer needs and requirements. The market has actually shifted, and people, organizations are now playing fairly on digital. Both nature and artificial makeups has actually made this to happen, in the sense that right now we are communicating through Zoom, for example, and it would be so ignorant for someone to actually fail to consider the shift to digital, especially if you are focusing on creating value for business. You want to improve the stakeholder value, and you want as well to actually make an impact into the market. So statistics basically show that bank customers, actually retail customers, they prefer doing digital transactions. More than 50% clients, they prefer doing digital transactions instead of actually visiting the banks. And it therefore means if banks have that clear picture, where people, consumers, feel more comfortable to interact with their institutions online. Like me, to be honest, I can't remember when I went to my bank, especially my personal, banker, to actually go withdraw cash. I have channels which I can use to withdraw. So I wouldn't go to a bank that is not offering the same. So we are in the same space. Banks are in the same space with SACCOs. And if you want to understand the landscape of SACCOs in Kenya, for example, leave alone Africa, we have an excess of 5,000 SACCOs. And out of these 5,000 SACCOs, only a few which actually have gotten to a level where they can digitize their systems, their processes. And that tells you there's a very big chunk of SACCOs who are behind there. And digitizing SACCOs and MFIs is nothing to think about. This is a must. It's inevitable, because it normally creates a safe and simple, transparent way of doing business. And you're also looking at the element of risk, because credit has an element of risk which has to be managed. So if you're looking towards actually managing your risk, you can't avoid to go digital. If it's about reducing the costs of operations so that you don't have a lot of expense on operations, you can't avoid to get digital. So if you're talking of increasing your market share as a SACCO or as a microfinance, you want to handle a bigger and wider market without necessarily spending a lot and reducing your risk in lending, considering again, we are talking of people who don't have collateral. You want to encourage them to save, and if they're not saving, you as well want to give them a loan which is within their capacity to pay. You cannot avoid going digital. So that is the status of consumers, and they have become loyal. They have become more loyal to entities which are non-traditional, for that matter, because at the end of the day, they enjoy doing it because it saves their time. But at the end of the day, there is more value proposition, because as an organization, you want to create, a wider product offering to your customers. You don't want to always give customers the same thing and the same experience all the time. So that's actually, in a nutshell, the reasons why. There are so many why people should go digital, why organizations should digitize, but that's basic benefits that, of course, an organization would get. So with your permission, Bianca, I would want to go direct into what it really means to have a digital transformation strategy, and what are these steps which are key. What are the essentials of having a digital transformation strategy? It's quite unfortunate that more digital transformations fail actually than they succeed. Quite unfortunate. I'm in a space where, of course, every day we are trying to advise, organizations, lenders, CEOs of microfinance institutions, chairmen, board committees of SACCOs, so that they can know where to start, because they know where they want to go. Somehow they have an idea that this is the way to go, but they don't know where to start. But there are some who come very confidently that I want to digitize, I want to go digital, but there are some factors or essentials that they have not considered, for that matter. And it's very important to know that you can fail not because the technology is not there, but because you have not considered, for example, the people factor, the processes, like I mentioned in the beginning. You have to look at the environment of your business. You have to evaluate who you are. And that's where we talk about being investor, being, digital ready. So is the organization digital ready? So that is something we'll continue to discuss as we continue. So investment in people, investment in processes actually should correspond with investment in technology. But it's not just investing in technology and you expect that things should flow. So one of the most important things for organizations to consider is to evaluate themselves and understand what is their goals, what's the ambition. This ambition, most of the time, it's more strategic in that you want to realize something in the future. And if you don't know where you want to go, if you can't be able to determine the future of the organization as a SACCO, do you see the need of having a strategic plan? Or if everything is running, now you are comfortable. So your customers have not been tapped, so you feel, I should continue the way I am. I don't want to make this move because so far so good. Is that the way to go? So it's good to evaluate yourself and realize there is a need to have a strategic plan, which helps to position your company at a better position in the future, so that you can be able to face the competition that is coming, even if you are comfortable. So what are your capabilities as an organization? So you have 5,000 members in your SACCO. You have 100 members in your SACCO. You have a vision and you have a plan. Realize your capacity. What can you offer to these people? So that now after that, you will ask yourself, who is my customer and how can I actually be more fitting to them? How can I respond well to their needs? So my SACCO has 60% of young members, or my SACCO is composed of 80% of aged people. So how do I serve them well? What strategies can I use? Because the same people who are members of my organization, they also belong somewhere, and they are banking somewhere, and they are being offered maybe a better service than you're offering. So if you are not thinking of how you can make a shift, then that means your business is almost going to die. Understand your customer in terms of what they want, what they do, how many are they, where do they stay, so that you can be able to know how you will reach them. So in the process of knowing how to reach them, that's now where you can come up with strategies which are more digitally inspired to connect them from where they are. We have seen these days banks, for example, you don't need to go to a bank hall to open an account. So what about SACCOs? Most of them, you have to go directly to the office and wait in the bench so that at least you can be onboarded on the platform. So it's important to know the demographics of your market and your customers. So when you talk about strategic planning, and therefore which of course digital transformation is a component in the whole plan on how you want to transform your business. As we say, you want to understand, where are my competitors? What are they doing? So being in the financial sector, having microfinance institutions, having banks which are operating, having the likes of digital platforms that has come from outside Kenya, and they have actually staged very big competition even to banks. And we all know that because of their seamless way of disseminating and offering their products to people. Okay, it's another discussion that we'll have in our next meeting, whereby we'll be talking about different models in depth of digital lending, and some of them has a perspective towards responsible lending. That's why you have been hearing a lot of discussions with central bank around whether credit is really improving livelihoods or what. It's basically having an understanding of what should credit do to a community. How well are you aligned towards what this technology can offer? So it's also important, so that I don't dwell on that bit. It's quite an interesting topic, because everyone gets to ask me at some point when we are discussing, Charles, what's the difference between the way so and so does their lending and mine? You can imagine someone, for example, appearing from somewhere because they have been inspired by what these digital lenders do. They don't know their customers, and they are advertising everywhere that you can get 20,000 shillings or 40,000, 50,000, and they don't come into contact with you. And someone says, I want this because I feel inspired. Probably if they're still running business, then it's a business that can as well give me give me a head start, or rather someone has already tried, so let me also try, so that I can also benefit like them. But you are deciding that being pushed by technology, but not looking at the other side of the business process, business model. Have you planned? Do you understand the credit process, so that now you can determine, how do you caution yourself against risk? How do you caution yourself against operational costs that may come along? In case something happens, how can you be able to? So basically, these are details. And ideally, we have two digital lending models. And in regard to this, I'm discussing about now microfinance institutions. It's not necessarily now the SACCOs, because remember, SACCOs operate under a bylaw. They are regulated. Their business model is clearly stipulated in their bylaws. And for that reason, the goal, as far as SACCOs are concerned, is to understand their processes, to understand their focus in terms of market acquisition, and to know how they can increase the value by giving good dividends at the end of the day. So they have to do business in a sustainable manner. They have to be keen in how they are doing their processes. So what digitization means to a SACCO, it's in as much as it's almost the same with microfinance institution, but the inspiration and the flexibility is a bit different. So for microfinance institution, you have your money and you feel, I want to lend, I want to start a side hustle, and you just need a technology that can help you to do that. And then you think, I want to use this model, only for you to come realize when you come and consult us, because we are consultants in this particular area, where we help you to move through the whole plan and help you to understand this model could be better for you. So we have the the volume scaling model, and volume scaling model is more automated. The whole system of lending, the whole process is actually almost automated. Even the determination of how much a customer should get in terms of loan, it's done by the system. So there's no human interaction with whoever who is borrowing. And you realize it's more risky, but it's cheaper to run it because there is no much capital which is employed in terms of human and all that. But now the risk is very high. So you can be sure that it as well reduces the margins. Then we have the risk averse model, which I feel and we feel because we have been base based, it's more responsible, it's more focused, it's more controlled. It has more focus into impact and improving livelihoods, because in credit you have to understand the whole process of credit appraisal so that now you can transform that digitally. So at the end of the day, we are talking about the strategy which you are drawing so that you can conclude this technology can work for me. It starts and it has to start from somewhere. So the other very important thing for you to consider is your resources. And when you talk about resources, we are talking about the available time, the available, money. So do you have, the necessary, skills? Those are things you have to ask yourself. It's quite interesting because, or rather, I would say it's not really wise when you don't have time for a business, but you want to start it because you have had, for example, that it's running. So you don't focus to know how much time do I have to focus on this. Yes, I'll be able to put someone in charge of this. However, I know it will require my time in terms of thinking, in terms of inspiring the people who are doing, because I'm not saying that you can't do a business being in another business, but it simply means just allocate your time wisely and know that technology will not just run and smoothly flow to work for you if you don't give it focus and time. So it's very, very important. Very, very important. So do you have the necessary skills? Do you really want to understand, for example, you want to do credit business? Do you understand how credit works? Do you know what is an appraisal process? Do you know how you can appraise someone professionally? So it's quite important for all this to happen. So, but in case you don't have this skill, you can acquire someone who is not necessarily so trained, but they have some passion, because this knowledge is always available. It's there online. And I want to send a challenge to all board members who manage SACCOs, to CEOs, managers, directors who own, microfinance, micro lending institutions. You can't separate ourselves too much from the process, from what is happening on the ground. Digital transformation is quite detailed and it needs some kind of focus into actually the details, because that is what works. That is what works. Not just looking at the big picture and not putting more focus into what's supposed to be done. The reason I'm saying this is to create some kind of an awareness so that you don't fear to actually venture into microfinance or to do lending or to manage SACCO, but so that you can seek more information so that you reduce your chances of failure. Ideally, that's what we do as an organization to help you to actually almost run seamlessly so that you don't risk. You don't necessarily, there's a story I was given by one of our clients actually when we had a forum, and they said a friend of him lost 30 million shillings because of copying a lending model. And they just went ahead, they procured some kind of technology and put 30 million and told people to just borrow money. So you find this someone who had not gone through the process of digital transformation to understand how it works. So it's quite important for you to do that. So finally, it's very important for you to know where you are, because now after knowing who you are, after knowing your customer, after knowing your market, you want to know now to determine generally who you are as, where you are as an organization, and therefore now strategize to where you want to go. And you could decide, I want right now to focus on to everyone, not necessarily in microfinance, but this applies across, it applies the same across to everyone. The product of digitizing could be innovating and coming up with a new product. It could as well be you want to innovate the process. So you're operating a business and you have your same product stationed somewhere in the shop, but now you come up with a strategy where now the same product can now channeled differently, and now the whole process becomes more efficient, and you actually expand your market, of course, being inspired by the technology, and you achieve more results. So the end product of now strategizing is that you should come up with a new product. Either you are giving, as a SACCO, you have been giving educational loans, you have been giving long-term loans, which take 1 year or rather take 3 years for someone to pay. And you come up with new products, because like now customers' needs have changed. They don't necessarily need the big loans. The small loans as well working for them. What they require is for them to be made cheaper and to be more available, so that in case someone goes to a market and they want to buy stock, it can be available for them. Now you can imagine someone belongs to your SACCO and they can only get money from another bank because the other bank actually understands them better than the SACCO. So that actually explains to you why, if SACCOs don't change in the near future, actually they will not exist. Only a few will see the light of the day. So it's very important to actually know where you want to go by becoming quite relevant to your customer today. So for SACCOs, they have to act within the provisions of the ministry, their bylaws, what it stipulates, and sometimes they can be adjusted upon request. And this only happens when you see the importance of having a strategic plan. So it's a challenge to SACCOs. Invest some money so that you can plan and come out with a very clear plan of how your organization will go in the next few years. Thank you. Bianca, back to you.
Thank you, Charles, for that clarification and taking us through why it is important for us to digitize and come up with strategies that will help improve our operations as a SACCO. So that would bring me to my next point of concern, which is, in as much as we want to digitize and be on top of our game within our industry, what are some of the challenges that we may encounter while trying to strategize in this type of manner? So what are some of the barriers that we may encounter?
Great. Thank you so much, Bianca. There is a guy I like from MIT. He's a thinker in MIT, and he's a member of the Digital Strategy Roundtable of the US Library. And he said that digital transformation, when done well, it's like a caterpillar. So if it's done well, it turns out to a butterfly. But when it's done badly, so you can only get a faster, caterpillar. So that explains actually what I have been talking about, being more conscious of what it takes to run a good digital strategy. But now you cannot be able to run a good digital strategy if you don't understand what stands on your way. So thanks for bringing that question. But there are so many barriers to this, and they need to be discussed in detail. But I may not go into all that. But it can be classified generally into human barriers, because they come as a result of human resistance to change, and people justify the resistance. The reason why we're talking about the people factor and the process factor is because if an organization does not change the thinking, the mindset of the people from the top all the way to actually that janitor down there, because all these people can resist the change that is desired for the organization. This reminds me, last year before Corona, I went to Uganda, and one of the organization that I was going to see, the CEO requested me to appear before them and called all the staff, because apparently for almost a whole year, we were trying to discuss with them on how they can become digital, but he was really receiving a lot of resistance from the members. And this CEO called me to Uganda and went and talked to the staff. And the things they were fearing, you know, they were quite minute, small issues. And that tells you that the biggest challenge and barrier to digital transformation is actually human-based, and they are caused by people. Having, you know, those information silos, you know, independency. No one wants to actually the other person to know what they are doing. So in case there is more transparency, someone feels that their job will be jeopardized. And for that reason, there is a lot of resistance that comes with the whole process. So focusing on the culture is quite key and very important, so that people can be convinced that this thing is coming not to take their job. It's not coming so that it can make them redundant, but it's coming to help them so that they can be more efficient and they can achieve more. And as an organization,
now lead me to, as you were explaining how businesses can transform into
yes,
being digital and just finding different ways of transforming their business to maximize their profits while reducing their costs. I am left to wonder, should a business or a circle just shift to a certain strategy that is making waves? For example, in the past, we've had to have so many online transfers. Like most of our operations have been online because we've been locked up for the better part of last year. So should a business wait for such opportunities to come so that it shifts, or should it gradually just come up with strategies that will now lead up to this shift in the long run? How should it be done? Should we just shift because everyone is shifting, or should we just wait and plan out? How can we go about this shift?
okay, thank you. I'll try to answer that. Hope I'll be able to respond correctly. There's this conversation about the push and pull, where people are pushed by their strategy, or rather they are pushed by technology so that they can transform. So someone looks at technology and they start from there. So that makes them now to move to a particular point. So the other one is where the strategy actually pulls the organization towards adopting a particular technology that can work for them. It's a conversation that is ongoing, but with what is coming up and sprouting of, you know, several technologies which are rapidly changing things, it becomes actually almost predictable that each strategy can work. In case you have, for example, let me give you an example. When Safaricom came, and they came, of course, with the main product of voice and messages. There are so many other products that have been built on Safaricom. You know, starting from Skiza, a very small, you know, product that is not even so much pronounced, but that product makes a lot of money for those people who actually manage it. And no one talks about it. So you can be sure that's an idea that came after technology has come on the table, and someone now is being pushed by it to come up with new things. So ideally, I would say that emergency of new technologies, you know, and the quick adoption of, you know, by customers, and also industry becoming more responsive, it has created opportunities, and these opportunities have been picked by businesses that are agile, and they have been picked by people who have more technical information, people who are more innovative, and basically they're just opportunistic. So each actually can be able to propel someone towards, you know, having value from a successful digital transformation.
Thank you, Charles, for that clarification. So before you tell us what you do at Counter One, I have a question that came in from our visitors that I'd like for you to answer. So they asked where you see the fintech industry in 5 years, and especially within Kenya.
Okay. So basically, that is talking about financial sector. I would say we are actually almost at 50%. You can be sure what will happen in the next 5 years will be almost double what is happening. Ideally, innovations are really working for Kenya, actually even more than what is happening outside there. I would be hesitant to talk about other countries like Uganda, like Zambia, like Malawi, but you can be sure in Kenya, anything that has not actually even been able to succeed in US, it can be able to succeed in Kenya, and that goes by experience. So expect the financial industry to have more accelerated growth, new products being actually born. When you see financial institutions like Equity Bank, for example, going ahead to realize the value of digital transformation, and they don't stop at the point of acquiring, or rather acquiring a software that can operate and manage their core banking. They go to an extent of procuring the whole organization that makes the platform. That tells you that the strategy of such an institution is well aligned towards digital. And that tells you that's actually the future of digital. In fact, you don't need to be told that the future of that organization is digital. And from the traction in the past, they can't go below where they have been able to reach. So looking at now the competition, how responsive it has been towards becoming digital as well, that tells you it will be quite exciting. It will be quite exciting. And right now, as we talk, people come to Kenya so that they can be able to see what we have been. In fact, they feel like miracles are happening. You know, they feel like Kenya is just a different place. So they come here for inspiration. So you can be sure innovation has not stopped. And there'll be more product offering, and therefore SACCOs and microfinance institutions need to be more responsive. They need to invest in skill sets which can help them to make some kind of a progression. This is not complicated. It's not complicated. If you remember, there was a time even a mobile phone was a challenge for people to have. But currently, you lose one today and you have it another one in the evening. And you have all the apps that you had. So there's some kind of a seamless, operation, seamless flow. And therefore, the same kind of seamless aspiration that customers want, that's the same way that organization should actually think. They should think of how they can offer seamless product offering, become more agile. You know, when you talk about becoming agile, financial institutions for some time, because of their custodian nature, they are controlled and they have to protect, the customers. That has actually reduced, and they have changed their way of working. They are more flexible in that they have now the capacity to come up with new products, and they are setting budgets and actually enlarging their provisions for loss so that they can accommodate technology. So that's actually where we are. And if all these resources, looking at how much the banks have actually, looking at reports, they have really invested a lot in digital investment. And that tells you something is cooking, and they will not get it wrong. So ideally, in a summary, I would say the future is bright and it's more exciting. But SACCOs needs to catch up, as well as other microfinance institutions.
Thank you for that, Charles.
Yeah.
So we thank you for clarifying the topic. You made it sound so simple. We're used to dealing with money and just understanding that this is how much I'm bringing in. This is my current system. I will put all the data that I need in a sheet, and this information will help me make decisions for my business. You made it sound so easy when you bring in the technological bit to the lending part. So could you tell us what Counter OneServe does and how you can help us now automate our processes, go through with now being on top of our game during these times?
Thank you for that. Ideally, what we do is now to help now an organization, especially SACCOs and microfinance institution, transition and now transform in a successful way, because, I feel bad when I see blunders that have been happening by people through their entrepreneurial nature, trying to do things without information only for it to crumble. And there's a lot of losses. There's a lot of losses. If you'd see statistics of people, for example, who have decided to come up with microfinance institutions, and they have failed for one reason or another, there's a common story as to why they failed. So go to circles. They have not been so dynamic. The same circle which was there 10 years ago, they are doing things the same way right now. So I wonder the future of that particular institution. And for that reason, we have invested our time quite heavily so that we can help circles through the barriers, knowing very well that one of the barriers of sustainable and reliable, robust technology is even budget. And for that reason, we have come up with packages which are very flexible, quite easy to actually operate with, where you don't have to put a lot of capital for you actually to start, in that you can even pay as you go, because our goal is to see that these organizations are making a move, they are making a transition, they are growing into the future, which will be bigger. And therefore, when they will be having the resources, they'll be able to put even higher budgets to do more in terms of technology. But for now, we help them to transition by giving them platforms which are not only core banking, but going towards digital interface, helping their customers to connect with them through mobile applications, through USSD for those who don't have smartphones, helping them to achieve more on the platforms which you have built for them, with more dynamism, more than the legacy systems that have been having. And talking of legacy systems, circles have been held up and trapped in working with some obsolete, I will say obsolete systems, which are not quite responsive to current technology. They cannot integrate, for example, with mobile applications. And since they invested on that platform and they are used to it, they feel like it's not possible. They can't be able to shift to another one. Number one, because of the amount of money it will cost them to do that. Then the grueling, journey that comes with adopting a new system. And therefore, we normally help circles to go through this whole journey to understand how they can do it. In fact, it doesn't start with them getting the solution. It starts with giving them free consultation and helping them to know the whole journey in terms of how they can plan their strategic plan, or rather how they can come up with it, all the way to how it will be executed following what we have just discussed. The same case with microfinance institution, and at the same time, we really advocate for responsible lending, because we feel at the end of the day, the sustainability of this business for whoever is in it is, number one, to improve livelihoods, is to make people's lives better. And there is a journey to achieve that. You have to make interest rates to be lower so that at least they can be more affordable. But you can't lower the interest rates without necessarily considering other factors that make interest rates to grow higher. So even authorities, we encourage them to consider those factors. It's not just a matter of lowering the interest rates. It's about looking at what makes the rates to go high and what can make them to be reduced. And that's actually our focus, to help the authority at the same time through offering our platforms to the people playing in the industry, to have systems that can help them to manage their risks, their costs of operations, and as well reduce the loopholes that are synonymous, or rather common in this particular industry. So anyone who needs this consultation, we are always there for you.
Thank you, Charles, once again for taking your time and taking us through this complex yet simple topic. So for everyone who joined us, we are really thankful for creating time. As I had mentioned earlier, this video will be available for distribution after the webinar. And we'll also just answer some of the questions that you guys raised. We'll also be hosting another series and we'll update you once we prepare for that. But until next time, we are thankful and hope to see you again soon. Bye. Bye, Charles.
Thank you.